Hey Magda, how's
Hey
it
Tara,
going?
doing good. It's Love Week.
I know, I'm super excited. Although I do feel that every day and every week should be Love Day. But this is going to be an awesome, cool little jam session because, well, for those of you who don't know, I'm Tara, permission to expand queen, and I'm all about expansion. So I was sitting there talking with my girl Magda, and we were talking about life and love. And we thought, hey, let's jump on here before Love Day and talk all about releasing what no longer serves us, shedding what no longer brings us what we need, and opening space for what is in our highest good. So with that, we're going to have a little live jam session with you guys here. So Magna, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, my name is Magda Juliana. I am a wellbeing mentor, and my jam is all about helping women specifically to get out of their autopilot and overwhelm and really rediscover themselves. And so this is a beautiful kind of it's very connected because when we finally make peace with who we are, the good, bad, the ugly, the shadow side, the light, the everything, and really take that in and embrace it, that's when the magic really happens for us, right? So I love having this conversation. I think it's really wonderful. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, my pleasure. So I'm sitting here on my meditation mat, chilling in my plants. I just had a little bug crawling on my chest. But let's talk about that
Don't freak
later.
out. That's okay.
It was giving me some love to my bosoms, let's say. But yeah, tomorrow's the big love day, right? So we're cutting this the day before Valentine's, and we were chatting, and I did something. For me, it's drastic. Many of you said it's not, but like I've never had short hair, and yeah, I just cut it. And I cut it after sitting in isolation at the cottage for a few days after a bit of a tough week. And I came back into the city last week, Tuesday. I went to the hair salon and right then and there decided to cut my hair. And then my son asked me, Mom, how does it feel to have hair shorter than your son's? And that like dawned on me. Oops, what did I do? But then I was talking with Magda about it, and I was like, oh my God, it's the first time I've had short hair. And that it felt like a bit of a shedding, because for me, growing up, long hair always felt like a protection. So culturally, we've learned that like hair helps you connect to the universe, and it is powerful in many cultures. But for me, being overweight growing up, I always felt like it hid and made my face look slimmer, and that made me feel more sexy and more attractive, which made me feel more lovable.
Yes.
Can you imagine having
You hit the
hair
nail
to
on the
be
head.
lovable? Like
Yeah.
when I say it out loud, it sounds insane.
You
But
feel like, hey, what's wrong? What is wrong with you? Yeah,
up.
yeah. And in so many cultures, hair in women specifically is very symbolic. And so when we got to talking about it, first of all, I think you look fabulous, and I think it's the epitome of your new up leveling, and that's how I see you, Tara. Right? Like you've been doing the work for decades now,
It's been a long time.
and probably intuitively you were like, I'll take this stuff off, right? Especially since you had such a rough couple of weeks, right? It was just like, I need something, right? And so, as we all know, hardships and moments that are challenging are the most, are catalysts for growth, for growth and for lessons. They don't feel like it while we're going through it, but once we're kind of almost at the other side, we're given that wisdom to kind of look back and think, wow, like I have really transformed, right? And you can see the blessing in it. And so I feel that you were just right on connected with your intuition, and you listened to it, and it was like a symbolic a moment for you to say, I'm not that woman anymore, right? For me, I'm Latin American. My parents are Colombian, and for me, hair, and in our culture, hair, like you go to Colombia and literally everybody, anyone who's sexy and beautiful, these beautiful women. I mean, there's beautiful women everywhere, but they all have this long, I'm talking like the Madonna, like just like waist long, and they're all like, they get the keratin treatment, so it's like super shiny, and like it is meant to be. That's like you can't, you may not have enough to eat, but you
But
got
you have
short
nice
hair.
hair.
Yeah, like it's not negotiable, right?
Yeah.
And growing up, as my parents came here to Canada, I was born here and I grew up here. My parents somehow didn't see it that way. And I wonder, I heard stories when I was older that my parents always wanted a boy.
Yes. My parents,
Right?
their first would be a boy too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they didn't have any more. It was just me, and that's it. Like they closed the factory down when they had me. But
My parents had 4 boys after me.
oh, there they go. Their dreams were made reality. But with me, it was just me, and that's it.
Yeah.
And somehow I feel like my father always, when I was growing up, he always tried to instill this: you need to be independent, right? You can't be this feeble woman. You gotta, and so he was always teaching me to do all this stuff. And I was a very shy little girl, actually. And so it was really hard for me to know how to do that. And then, as you're a kid, you're wanting to be a girl because you're a girl. Like, I mean, if you identify with that, right? And it was really hard for me to find that feminine energy as a child. So I was looking through my album. So this was me, I think, in junior kindergarten. And this is the hairstyle that my parents gave me. And these were like little overalls. Just imagine like bell-bottom overalls.
Oh, cute.
Right?
So
So
cute.
but yeah, cute. But while I was in it, this is like senior kindergarten. I mean, what's up with those berets, right? And, this was grade 1.
Oh, I love it so much. You had like short hair forever.
And then they decided, oh, that was still too long. Let's cut it again. So I always had this kind of like little boy look. Even teachers at school would sometimes forget that I was a girl and they tack me in with the rest of the boys. And that really traumatized me, right? So speaking about what our hair signifies to us. After that, once I started to have a voice, I told my parents, I was like, you're not cutting my hair anymore. And then I was always like this is me in grade 8 or grade 9, whatever that is. And from there, it was just like the longer the better, right? Because then I felt like a girl. And then I think it was first year university. I decided when I hit university, I was like, I'm gonna be a whole new woman and no one's gonna hold me back. And that whole rebellious, like, because when you've been kind of crushed and bullied for a lot of your youth, you feel like, oh, I'm going to be this whole new person. So I cut my hair. It's first year university.
Wow.
Cut my hair super short, shorter than yours. I was like super short. And I remember I went to the hairdresser, same like you. I just went and he was only supposed to do like a cut or whatever. And I said, you know what, just cut it off. And he was like, really? He got all excited. He's like, just cut it off. He cut it. It was like short, like the mushroom thing that was happening in the 90s.
Yes.
Like this mushroom thing. And it was the worst year of my life.
Oh.
Yeah, no dates. No, no, nothing. And why? And the reason why I'm bringing this up is so much of my self-esteem and who I thought I was and who I thought I portrayed out to the world was so linked to my hair and also like the rest of my body, of course, and also feeling like, am I a woman? And what does that mean? What does that mean? And to be approved and to be loved and to, get dates and have a boyfriend and all these different things. It was do or die, when we're younger, it really feels like if I don't have a boyfriend or nobody asked me for a date, it's like the end of the world. It was the end of the world.
Then you feel unlovable and unworthy.
Yes.
Nothing to do with them. In your mind, it's all about you. It's all about the fact that you're not enough and you don't, you're not beautiful enough and you're not smart enough and your hair's not long enough. And, if we could just somehow see our light and understand that the light is going to shine regardless of what this vehicle is doing, right? But it's so hard when you're living in the moment. It's so hard when you're the one who's not getting asked out, or you're the one who's getting bullied, or you're the one who's being told that you're unattractive in some way, shape, or form. And I guess like as we go through life and we get to that point where we start to realize, hold on, like I can do whatever I want And it doesn't make me less or more because of my choices with my hair or my clothes or my whatever the case is. So it's interesting because when I was telling you, for me, I didn't go through anything in the conscious mind. I didn't sit there and say, I'm going to go cut my hair. I want to be more independent. I want to be this. I want to. In fact, for so long, I was against it because I thought that in leadership, many women feel they have to cut their hair in order to be taken seriously. They have to cut their nails. They have to wear mute colors. They have to show up in their most masculine type state because that's what they've seen emulated around them. And that's what they think success looks like. So for a long time, I was absolutely no way I'm cutting my hair because then it's leading into that I have to be more masculine to lead. And for some reason on that Tuesday, it wasn't a conscious decision. It wasn't something I had pre-planned. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to step into this. It just happened. And it's interesting because I was talking to you about it. And of course, something's happening in the heart space when you make a decision like that. And even my son detected, he called, he's like, that's a drastic change. Are you okay? Do you need me to come home, Ma? You're right. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
But something's happening at an intuitive level and something's happening in our heart space. And in leadership, my main thing is to try and incorporate our logic and our business sense with our heart. And when I was talking to you about this, it's interesting because we made some connections, right? Because this happened last week, Tuesday, which was the Tuesday of a full moon. So
yes.
Do you want to talk us through what might have been happening from an energetic level? Because as women, we sometimes forget our body moves on cycles. Our body is connected to Mother Earth. The moon cycles impact us.
Yes.
Our menstrual cycles impact us. The cycle out there in winter versus spring, it impacts us so much more even than our male counterparts because of that intuitive guidance and because of the fact that our body is mapped into those energetic things. Exactly. So we got jamming about this and we're like, hey, it was,
yeah, it blew my mind because when you were telling me all this, I'm like, you did it on the Tuesday. So the Sunday night, just the last Sunday, was the full moon. It was the first full moon of this year. Right. And full moons typically the symbolism of the energy that they bring is release. It's like the endings, like you're ending, you're coming with a determined decision on certain things. So as opposed to the new moon's more about let me open space, let me start new things, let me get creative. But the full moon, that's why a lot of people sometimes get a little scared of the full moon because they think that's when I'm going to break up.
Yeah.
Yes, they can actually bring a lot of drastic and people, because we are more than 50% water, right? Our cells, our molecules, our neurons, on everything. So even on a physiological level, right? The moon does affect us, whether we like to admit it or not. When I used to work at the ER in hospitals back in the day, we all knew when it was going to be a full moon because the ER department would be jammed 3 or 4 days before coming to a full moon, always. And it was, and these were doctors, science people going, oh, there's going to be a full moon. We need extra staff that night because we knew that's when people get a little bit more erratic. But for us women who are just living our day-to-day lives, yes, you're right. There's a very heavy influence. But not only that was important because that was a really heavy full moon. And I saw it also in a lot of my clients and a lot of other women that I've been mentoring as well. Collectively, I don't know if you felt this or not, Tara, but collectively, especially since December, there's been this instinct to just almost explode. It's just, you know what? I'm done with this. And I've seen so many women leave unhealthy relationships, leave careers that they've had for 30 years. And they're like, that's it. I don't want to do this anymore. And really standing in their authenticity. And I really kind of want to match that up with something you just said. Leadership now doesn't mean that you have to be a CEO or, you could be the leader in your home. And feminine leadership is really stepping up. It is the new path to our evolution. No longer are the patriarchal type of leadership where, you know, it has to be black and white and that's it. No. And that's the beauty of it. And so many of us women are being called by our heart, by our soul, by our solar plexus. It's like it's all coming up. And some of us don't know what's happening because the sensations are really intense. But when we allow ourselves to have the space and just tap in, your intuition will guide you. Just like as you, when you sat in that hairdresser's chair and you're like, I don't know, but you know what? I don't think I want to do what I always did. You know, you were being guided, and probably we were guided to have this conversation. And for the people who are tuning in to listen to this conversation as well. And the other beautiful celestial thing that's happening is that we're coming to a 50,000 year cycle of the green comet. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's been on CNN, NASA, all over the place, but this was a spectacle to behold. And it also happened last week. So it came by, and actually, if anybody has a telescope at home, I think you can still see a little bit of it, but it was this beautiful, like the Hulk. This was this green emerald smear through the sky. 50,000 years since that comet has come into our awareness.
Right.
So this isn't coincidence, is what I guess I'm trying to say. This upheaval of the way that society is now beginning to open is written in the stars. And because all the stardust out there, we're made of it.
Exactly. And I just wrote something in my morning pages yesterday or the day before about that, like a return to a knowing that we have everything inside of us, right? So I love to say that people say, where are you from? I'm a child of the world, right? I'm a child of the world. It doesn't really matter. If you look at my background, you will see I have many, many cultures in me, but I'm a child of the world. And really, we're all made of that same stardust. And when you connect into that, it is really hard not to love yourself. When you connect into everyone's made of the exact same stardust, that means no one is more or less deserving. And it's really hard because sometimes, especially lately, I've had this from many, many people where they're like, Tara, what is happening? Like, it feels like the world is in distress. Everybody is in mental illness. There's so much going on around us. It's really sad. People are just, stabbing people in the subway for no reason and stealing cars left, right, and center. And how do I cope? That's what I've been hearing a lot. And for me, the answer is returning to that understanding that we are all the same stardust.
Yes.
If we can put ourselves in that mindset that no one is more or less deserving, even the criminal in the jail, believe it or not, is not more or less deserving than the CEO at a major company, than you, than I.
Yeah.
And once I start to get into that frame of reference where I am stardust and I am sharing that stardust with you, it is hard for me not to love myself because I love you. And if I love you, and if there's something lovable that I can see in everyone I meet, then there has to be something lovable about ourselves that we may not always take the time to acknowledge. And I think that's really the message I want to get across. There's all these things happening left, right, and center, from the universe to the energy to great things and to not so great things. And we have to have this equanimity as those things arise. Whether they're good or bad, they're all going to pass. None of them are going to stay forever.
Right.
And so what has to be a constant is that love. And it's great. We have a day called Valentine's Day, which is a holiday, but like, if we could wake up every morning and we could tell ourselves that we love ourselves, and we could tell those around us that we love them, and we could look at a stranger, and when we say, hey, how's your day? We love them enough to actually listen to what they say. You know what I mean? If we can get ourselves in that space, what a difference we could make to combat this difficulty that many around us are facing.
Yeah, this whole coping, I really hate that word.
Me too. I don't like to cope. I like to thrive. I'm always.
Yeah, because I also suffered from a lot of mental health as well over these last recent years. And I know what it's like when people are trying to get you just kind of get by, and you don't want to just get by. I want to be happy. I want to feel like I have some power over my life. Like I'm not, you feel sometimes like a puppet, like a prisoner, and that you can't control. And I think is very important what you're talking about. What you're talking about is self-awareness, is really what it is, right? Without self-awareness, we really can't make real changes in our life. Not how we think, not our perspective of the world, not the way that we interpret the world. And absolutely, it's very difficult to have compassion. At the end of the day, compassion is what helps you be able to look at your little child or then your neighbor or whoever it is and see that little spark inside of them. We're all just trying to do the best that we can. Some of us are just not conscious of it. Everybody is always trying to do the best that they can. I just had this conversation with a client last week where she was complaining about her husband, actually, that he's so lazy and blah, blah. And I said, I have found in my experience that people are not actually lazy. If they're unable to get going and do something, it's because something is blocking them. We all want to do the best that we can. None of us want to disappoint people. None of us want to disappoint ourselves, right? We don't. It's almost innate of us to always want to do good and be good and, and do everything. But if there's something that it's because something is lacking in us. There's a belief system, or there's a block, or there's a fear, or there's something. So sometimes when I used to be a manager back in the day in corporate world, I used to tell my employees, when we have like an irate customer or whatever it was, I'd say the people that are hurting the most are the ugliest sometimes when they come at you. And so what I try to get them to understand is, when you see, I'm not saying you tolerate bad behavior towards yourself, you have to always respect your boundaries. But at the same time, even while you're still trying to protect your boundary, when you see them, don't see them as this angry old man who's just yelling at me. The harder they yell, it's almost like they're yelling for help. They're injured. They're like little injured children, because we all have inner children, right? We all have that inner child inside of us. And when it acts up, it's because we are in deep pain,
Mm-hmm.
So it's always a nice thing to keep in the back of your head. And I find that it's so much easier to do that with other people. And we have such a hard time to do the exact same thing with ourselves, right?
Yeah, I have, Becky Netherly, one of my favorite copywriters and dear friends. She always says to me, Tara, be gentle with yourself. And maybe she doesn't always say it. Maybe she said it a few times, but I hear it. I hear her in my mind's eye always saying, be gentle with yourself, because it's the hardest thing to do for me, is to like sit there and be okay with what I perceive as a failure or not hitting where I need to go. And I've become more balanced lately. And what I mean by that is I can feel the world suffering. As empaths, you are an empath as well, sometimes you're so sad and you don't even know why, because you're feeling all of this going on around you. And it's easy for me to kind of like want to cocoon and just shut down, because I need to recover from everything that's going on around me. But I truly believe that the reason we're in this situation right now is because of all of the lockdowns and all of the disassociation with the people that we care about, and all of the changes that happened so quickly to take away people's coping mechanisms, that it's hard. And no one's been able to do what you suggested, which is kind of sit in, and I shouldn't say no one, many of us haven't been able to sit in and be self-aware and to look inside and to say, why am I flying off the handle? Why am I getting upset prematurely? Why am I upset that this person doesn't want to hang out with me today or something? Because it's not logical. It's just our mind, our 7 or 6 year old in the back of our mind throwing a temper tantrum, and it's outward, focused to other people and to ourselves.
Yes.
So I think in the same sense, where we have to understand everything that's going on around us, and we have to be self-aware so that we can be conscious to what we need, what we feel, whether it's just to love ourselves and be gentle, or whether it's, to follow the moon cycles or whatever it may be.
Yes.
As we're sitting in that self-awareness, we also have to have this, it has to be like this undeniable love for ourselves and for our inner child too, right? Because sometimes what we want as an adult and our inner child, they've got us in conflict.
They compete, absolutely.
They compete, right? And then so you look at this stressful situation, your inner child is throwing a temper tantrum and acting like a kid you got to send to their room. You're trying to keep it all together. And then, you go out and you do something like cut your hair off, and people are like, what are you doing? And it's just, it's taking a step forward and saying, okay, how do I sort through this? How do I make my inner child and my adult person okay, so we can go out there and bring love into the world?
Yes.
But it's not easy, right?
No, it's really being the loving parent you always wanted and needed.
Yes.
You have to be that loving parent. So I do a lot, especially this year, I've done a lot, last year, a lot of inner child work, lots with my clients, because it's that detachment. And there's an exercise I have. This is me.
Oh, so cute.
So the exercise, and maybe anybody that might want to try it, is I went through all my albums and I chose one baby or child picture, doesn't matter what it is, anything under 5 is usually the sweet spot.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to find it and you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, oh, exactly what you just said. Oh, you have that like little moment of tenderness. And then you realize that's me. And that little baby is inside me. So the next time I go to be super harsh with myself because I procrastinated for something, or I did something that I shouldn't have done, whatever it might be, because it's so much easier to be more forgiving to others that we love than ourselves. When you begin to have meditations and a lot of vision work where you bring that baby in front of you, and that's the one and you start to really feel her in there, like, holy cow, she's in there. All of a sudden, it's so much harder to be harsher with yourself because she's in there. Now you've identified, you've created a relationship with her. If that baby right there was sitting right in front of me, I'm not going to go and smack it and kick it. Never, never, never. So why is it okay for me to do it to me? Absolutely. So when we begin to have that relationship and identify that little baby or that little kid, that toddler, whatever it is inside me, and you start to have actual conversations with her, it's a game changer. It's a game changer. And that's been one of like the really simple beginner little practices for absolutely anybody. If you've never meditated in your life, it doesn't matter. You can just sit there with this picture in front of you and be like, okay, little Tara, what do you need today? And I can't begin to tell you how many times I've cried, because it's like the little inner Magda, like, I need whatever it might be. And she talks to you. She really does. And it's a beautiful, beautiful practice. And I think it's just such an easy and simple thing, because children elicit that tenderness from us already. And then that inner love for yourself starts to crack open just a little bit more. For people who have been chronically evil to themselves, I am definitely one that has a big challenge with that. I am my worst enemy when it comes to that. I think that I'm the worst, I'm the weakest, I'm the one that makes the most errors, I'm the sloppiest, I'm the, every possible negative thing I am. This is what I've bombarded myself with for decades. And when you begin this practice, there's a softening that happens, right? And so the next question that everybody always asks is like, well, then what's self-care? Like, if I want to love myself, what do I have to take a bubble bath once a week? Like, they don't know, right? Because there's so much stuff in the media right now about self-love and,
Yeah. And can we just like really jam here for a minute about love? Like, love is love, right? And we need to love ourselves the way we would love anything else, with love. Like the self-love is not different, right? Like when you love someone, when I love someone, I want to cook for them. I want to nourish their body. I want to like almost feed them, because I know that if I'm cooking with love and they're putting that in their body, they're going to love it. It doesn't mean I have time to cook all the time, but for me, I want to nourish their body when I love someone. That's how you give yourself self-love. You just
Absolutely.
nourish your body. And so I am in so much agreement with you. So if we jam about love, love is just really giving to yourself what you want others to give you. I always remember Jerry Maguire because I love the movie, right? I am like, when he sat down and he wrote that new motto, I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to change the sales game. It's all about heart-based love, but yet I'm still going to be number one because I'm so competitive. Rah, I can't wait.
Yeah.
Until the point in the movie where he looked at her and he stared in her eyes and she's like, you complete me. And I'm like, no, no, you don't complete me, punk. I complete myself. And all jokes aside, I think that is part of the biggest problem we have right now is we're looking externally to fill our cup. We're looking externally to take care of that inner child. We're looking externally for validation. We're looking externally to feel sexy, to feel beautiful, to feel like the stardust that we are. And it has to come from within. Because as long as we don't love ourselves completely with all of our beautiful things and all of our flaws, we're never going to attract someone who can do that. We're always going to attract someone who loves us with the shadow of how we can't love ourselves. Because that's the only way we'll see it is through them not loving us the way we need to be loved. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Here's the trick. Because I've also dealt with a lot of women going through separation and divorces, and the trick is that exactly as you said, if we are trying to find happiness and love in all the wrong places, as they say, which is just basically outside of me.
Yes.
That means that I'm giving all my control, my entire life, I'm giving it to this other person who has their own journey, their problems, their shadow, their light, and everything, just like I do.
Right.
And that scares the living bejesus out of anybody. Why? Because now it's like, oh my God, I've just given everything to this person. And so what are you doing? You're fear mongering, right? You're just, do they like me? Did he like that? Maybe we got into an argument. Is it going to be okay? Is it going to be like the anxiety that just happens is because now my happiness is completely dependent on what this person does, says, responds, everything.
Yep.
So you will never, ever be able to be complete if your love is all directed to just one person. The love has to be within you first. That gives you the confidence. It gives you that kind of zen that needs to happen so that you don't need anybody. You love another human being, not because you need them, right? You love your children, right? That's a very innate, it's almost like instinctual. You love your children, not because you need them. They need you possibly, maybe at the first couple of years of their life, but you don't really need them. You've chosen to love them. It's something that you can't even put into words how it happened. It just, poof, there it was. It just magically just poof, right? And that's the problem I find with a lot of people, a lot of women, men too sometimes, but I deal mostly with women. And that's the issue, is that they're so scared that they're never going to find that person, right? That will complete them, just like, because that whole romantic thing it has been so romanticized in every movie. Jerry Maguire was just one of them, but you're my other half. In Colombia too, we have that saying like, oh, he's my other half of the orange. It's a weird, but it's like my other half of the orange. I found my other orange half. But I think that has really screwed women's minds, because you think that if you don't find that ideal partner, then you're not successful at life. You won't be happy. You can't be happy.
Or the opposite. So you feel like if you don't find that partner, you're missing out.
Yes.
So perhaps you put on a different jacket, and the other jacket that you're going to try on is, I don't need anybody. I'm completely independent and whole on my own. I'm a boss babe. I make my own money.
Yes.
And to me, I'm not in a land of right or wrong, but both sides have an issue because we are meant to be with others. We are meant
We
to
are
love,
social animals.
meant to
Absolutely.
connect. We are meant to be physical. We are meant to have intimacy. And I think that it's a form of fear and self-protection when people say, I can do it all on my own. And as women, we have to be careful that as we work our way through the ladder in a corporation, in our financial bag situation, in whatever it is we're trying to acquire and conquer on this earth, that we don't forget that we are women, that we and or they or she or however, I'm not suggesting anything other than the fact that we need love.
Yes.
But in order to properly attract the love that we want, we have to first love ourselves. So let's start with, what does that look like? At night, I've started sleeping naked.
Ooh.
And I know.
Muy caliente.
And I sleep with one hand on my bosom and the other hand on my tummy, in that area that I was never able to accept, that I always felt was fat, that I always felt was, unattractive, that had stretch marks, that has stretch marks. I have a lot of stretch marks. And it made me feel that my tummy was unlovable.
Yeah.
And so I sleep with one hand on my bosom and one hand on my tummy, or one hand on my tummy and one hand caressing my shoulder on my side, because I snuggle myself. Well, I love snuggles. If I want to attract more snuggles in my life, I need to snuggle myself. Yes. I need to love myself and hold myself and accept the stretch marks. If I want someone else who's going to be like, baby, your stretch marks are beautiful.
Because you're proving to yourself that you're deserving.
And once you rewiring that. Exactly. And that rewiring comes from, you talked about 5 years old is probably the best, or younger, to look at. Well, there's some scientific proof there. It's because our subconscious mind kicks in after 7, and anything that's happened to us before then is what's leading the ship, right? It's making us think whatever we heard back then that made us feel less than is what's leading the ship. So now we've got to rewrite that. So mine is holding myself. Mine is looking in the mirror in my eyes every single morning and saying, I love you, Tara. Yeah. I love you, Tara. No, like, I love you, Tara. And it is freaking uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable.
But when you stare in your eyes, just like when you stare in someone else's eyes, I truly believe it's the gateway to the soul. And I think if we can look in our own eyes and we can love everything that we see, the good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful, whatever it is, we are telling ourselves we're worthy. And if we're worthy and we're good enough and we love ourselves and we love our stretch marks, or we love our long hair or our short hair or our flabby boobs or our tight boobs or our butt or whatever it is, something amazing happens. And that is, we put the right boundaries in place to call in what is in our highest good, as opposed to having no boundaries because we're desperate for love and we'll take whatever we get.
Settling, yes.
What we'll get then is the lesson on repeat, on repeat, on repeat. And so, I mean, you've gone through a few of those relationships. You now have a man in your life that I've met, and he's fantastic. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about that switch when you found him and when you were able to actually get the love that you deserved from him, because I'm sure that wasn't day one.
Oh no, oh, God. I could cry.
I love
I was man, my search for love has been super traumatic. And I believe that it began when I was this little kid, because I started to like boys, right? Like I think it was grade 1. I was like, who's that over there? Mario. Who's Mario? And I was like a kooky looking kind of kid. So I wasn't like the popular girl, whatever. And so I grew up, just as you said, I grew up with this thing inside of like, I have to try so hard, more than anybody else. And I've got to be super good at everything. And, I have to have like the flattest stomach, and I have to have like the best posture, because or else I won't compare to everyone else. Right? I went through eating disorder. I had bulimia for the longest time, for almost 20 years. I used to cut myself. I had all kinds of body dysmorphia. And then I was very innocent when it came to dealing with men. Once I was a late bloomer. So I was in my 20s and I finally started to actually be sexually active, I didn't know what the hell was going on. And the minute that just somebody paid attention to me, it was just like, like, oh my God, this honor, this honor here, like do whatever you want with my body, which
Yes.
led to my sexual assault. I was sexually assaulted in my mid-20s by a police officer, somebody that, was supposed to be an authority figure.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was really tough. It was really tough. And that's how it kind of went. It didn't get, like, my 20s was a car wreck. It was because after the assault, what happened was that the masculine in me was like, fuck this. Sex is where it's at. So then I'd start going to clubs and be like, that one and that one are coming home. Like, I just turned into the complete opposite of what I was, because I was like, I'm never letting this shit happen again. I control just like you said, that whole bosslet, because there's the fear. It was either that or die.
Yes.
Truthfully, that was the
only way through fear is through it. Otherwise, it makes us do crazy things.
Yeah. So I went through that. I got married twice, divorced twice within 3 years. I mean, it was like boom, 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 boom. I bought houses. I went to live down in the States, and I was just so self-destructive, and I had no idea what real love was. I didn't know how to love myself. I still continued with a lot of self-destructive behaviors. And with my husband, what happened was that we had been friends for about 9 years. So before I started this whole spiral or whatever, and we had maintained friendship. And then when I got divorced the second time, I finally came back home to Toronto. And I was just like, I'm just going to stay here. And we connected. He came over just to see how I was doing. And it was like, I don't know, some weird explosion happened between us, because we'd always flirted and stuff like that, but it was never serious. And it was just like, bam. And since that day, we have not been apart. We're 16 years now. We haven't been apart, not one day. And it was horrible. I'd say the first 4 to 5 years was such a learning curve. My husband, Sergio, is the kindest. He gave me permission to love myself. And I remember when we would have like discussions, like any couple, and he would say, he goes, you just don't love yourself. And I can't love you if you can't love yourself. I can't believe that you say you love me if you can't even love yourself. Before anything else, please love yourself. Because he saw the self-destructive, like I'd pick fights for no reason. I'd have anxiety because of, I know what somebody looked at me the wrong way, or at work, if things didn't go, a meeting didn't go the right way, or just anything I could use to just stab my skin. I mean, like, it was just horrible. And I can't imagine, as someone who loves someone else, like watching from the outside going, what is she doing? Why does she keep running into ongoing traffic? That's basically, I think, what he felt, is like, she's going to get completely obliterated one of these days.
But isn't it amazing that as we're talking, you never told me he said that to you, but that he said that to you, right? You cannot love me if you don't love yourself.
And then, you know what I thought, Tara? I thought, oh, I can't even do that right. I can't even love myself. Now he's going to leave me because he doesn't believe I love him. You know what I mean? Like, it was just all chaos until finally, I don't know what it was. It was just like, I think maybe in the 4th year, I sat there looking at him, and I thought, either I change or this is going to end, and it's going to be my fault. And this is the man that loves me unconditionally. And when I tell you, he's seen me in like the worst of the worst, like ugly, ugly, ugly stuff. And he's still there. I was like, okay, what are you going to do?
Yes.
What are you going to do? And maybe at the beginning, it did start with the fear of like, oh, I don't want to lose him kind of thing. But at the end, he gave me the space enough to be able to muck myself into it until I finally like, oh, okay, I actually am pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I actually am pretty powerful. I actually have a purpose in life other than just going to my 9-to-5 job.
And once you felt that, right? And you really leaned into that and you made those changes, what happened to your love?
Oh my God, Tara, I'm gonna get TMI here. I don't care. This is all, you know,
I
well, love the TMI.
love
I believed at the beginning that the more you have sex, the more they love you. I had this messed up thing.
it. Yeah, I could get, especially with like the sexual history that we've for sure.
Right. But for a lot of women, we feel that way. We feel that if the man is not coming and approaching us, then there's something wrong with me, right? Because we're drilled into our head that men just want sex. They're all about sex and they'll never say no to you. And you know what I mean? Like they'll have sex with anything. You could be sleeping and they'll still have sex. You know what I mean? Like that's
Men, why do we do that to them?
poor guys, right? Well, my husband's a very sensitive being. And if we, for example, you know how they always talk about like breakup sex, you know, or like angry sex, like after
Makeup
it's
sex.
like the most passionate. Well, my husband's not like that. He's super sensitive actually. And he's like, I can't, like after like an hour, he says, I just can't. I love you if you want to cuddle, whatever, but I can't because I need to release all that. He's just so empathic. He's actually much more empathic than me. But for the longest time, I thought like, oh my God, it's me. He's disgusted of me. He's disgusted because we just had this fight or whatever it was. And all the things I said, he must be like totally disgusted with me.
Mm-hmm.
And once I finally settled in 4 or 5 years into it, I finally realized I'm like, then all of a sudden the desperation of having him of needing him to come search me or like, you know, try to, you know, get it on, as they say, or whatever, completely subsided.
Mm-hmm.
Completely subsided. And you know what happened actually? I started to be the initiator.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Hey. I was like, you know, and he loved that. He was like,
How you doing?
How you doing? But you know what? It brought us to, and not only that, I began to learn that sex was not the only way to demonstrate love. And even what was more beautiful is that, and we've had conversations, actually, I think just the last couple of weeks, we had this conversation where sometimes we don't have that need to have sex all the time. Why? Because we have so much intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
We have so much intimacy in the day-to-day. You know, he wakes up in the morning, he's a morning person, I'm not, but he wakes up and the first thing he does is roll over and, you know, kiss me and hug me. And that's like, I feel so like I belong and so loved without the need of all these extra. I don't need Valentine's cards. I don't need nothing. There's nothing that I need more than to have those small moments of when I'm, I don't know, passing by and he just slaps me on the butt as like for no reason, just like, you know, or we sit and we just, sometimes we sit on opposite ends of the couch because like we have the headrest and the way the couch is, but just knowing that he's just on the other side, for me, it's very intimate.
Yes. And I can, first of all, I acknowledge you for sharing so openly. And, you know, people, as ladies, you know, I had an ex-boyfriend who used to say, you know, Tara, it's inevitable because women, they're always searching for a relationship. They always want a relationship, and guys, like, they don't. And for a while, I believed what he was saying to me, you know, and he also like wanted to have multiple sexual partners, but the woman, you know, is I think just with him or something. I don't know. But the reason I bring that up is because I believed that for a long time, and it's just not true. Like I know now that, well, I've never been willing to compromise, but I've always compromised. So let me just further explain that. And I know now that the right person for me is out there. and I will no longer compromise until I find someone who appreciates the joy I bring to the room and they bring joy to the room. And together we can, go wherever we need to go without compromising what each other needs. So all of that to be said, like, I also felt after my past relationship, which was a very long one, there was a lot of infidelity, and that didn't make me. I chose to make that about me as opposed to about the person. I chose to feel for, 20 years that I had to fight for something to make it all worthwhile in the end, because I had lost so much, right? Like I had to fight to make it work. I had to fight to be desirable. And when I felt like I wasn't seen, it was like, okay, I gotta keep trying new things. So if being sweet doesn't work, then I gotta argue. And if arguing doesn't work, then I gotta throw a temper tantrum. And if that doesn't work, I gotta do the silent treatment. And I'm at this stage in my life right now, I don't want any of it. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to have like a bad day and be a crazy nut job. I'm going to have those moments. Look, we practice equanimity. The good and the bad's going to come up. But I don't want to question myself like that anymore. And I remember feeling the other thing that I know right now is like women, as we're talking right now, is the greatest gift we can give to each other is just these communications and these talks and these vibes and like giving space for each other, because we're not in competition. And for so long, I felt like I was in competition with the world because someone else was always stepping into my bedroom. And now I realize like that had nothing to do with me. That had to do with his own issues. And that doesn't mean that I'm not beautiful. That doesn't mean I'm not lovable. It doesn't mean I can't bring great things to the table. And sex is a very small part. Now, unlike when you toughened up and you're like, I'm going to sleep with you and you and you, I did the opposite. I said, I'm not going to sleep with anybody. I'm like locked down. I'm so rigid. And I'm not saying I'm going to go sleep with people now. I'm just saying it's interesting once we start to dialogue how similar instances can have such different impact on our lives. And that's where the self-awareness becomes so important. How is the events of your past steering the car today? And is it taking you where you want to go? Because I know right now I want a life partner. I don't want to be out there dating, running the streets. I want a life partner who's going to know me, who's going to cuddle with me, who's going to go to kickboxing with me, who's going to take over the world with me. And I can change his poopy diaper when he's old or vice versa. That's what I want. And so when you're really clear about what you want, and you're really clear that you love yourself and that you deserve what you want because you want it from a healthy space, not from a space of feeling worthy, but from a healthy space of I am good enough, then you can attract it. And it will come. And it may not be the way you expect, right? Because look, with a friend of yours, you didn't expect this to happen. But
no, I was in the midst of the second divorce. I mean, I was in chaos. And I probably wasn't even ready, to be honest with you, but it just kind of fell out of the sky. But you're absolutely right. You need to be in a good space to be able to appreciate, first of all, when someone does come along, because that's the other thing too. You start to like nitpick at everything. And that's just your fear coming up, right? Trying to defend you again. He's not again. And maybe, he looked kind of weird, like, and you start to like nitpick at everything. So really knowing your truth and having some sort of daily practice of self-awareness. It'll be baby steps. It'll be like tiny, tiny baby steps every day. But allowing yourself that freedom, that I think is the biggest self-love thing that you can do. Bar none.
And when we look at love and like our past and everything, that's another thing. Because I realized for me with the infidelity, that meant there was always dishonesty. And that meant that there was no communication because anything that was being told to me was a lie. So when I start talking to a gentleman now, in the back of my mind, I'm still fearful that although they say they're with their mama, they're with this cute little light-skinned girl down the street, or they're at work, but meanwhile they're in the back of their car. Like,
that's what
consciously every single day, if like I have to keep that in check. If I truly want to grow to be the best version of myself, then the remnants of my past have to be dealt with. Because as Eckhart Tolle says, there's no yesterday, there's no tomorrow, there's only today. So if I can bring myself into today, if I can say, this is what I am today, I love myself today, I am worthy today, I'm good enough today, and I attract everything good today, then not only is it good for you, but the person you're talking to, instead of constantly investigating them and looking for the wrong, you're looking for the right. You're expressing every day that you're with that person, the gratitude you have for that day. And if there comes a time where you can't be expressing gratitude for that other person in your life, then you know it's time to leave.
Yes.
And if
Completely.
it can be like, it's kind of black and white. This whole dating thing doesn't have to be as complicated if we can look at it simply like that. What are your thoughts?
Yes. Yeah, because we're not settling anymore, right? And so when we're very clear, it is black and white. And when you have that connection with yourself, with the inner child, with your inner wisdom as well, because we all have that inner wisdom as well, you're going to know. It's going to feel the sensations in your body. You can't deny the messages that come into you, right? And when we are self-aware, then you kind of know your telltale signs, right? When the fear starts coming up, you're like, red flag, I've felt this before, I know what's coming, I'm going there again, or whatever. But that takes work, and it really takes a commitment to yourself. And that's the one thing that I think is just so important. So like connecting with that inner child, having some space every day, even if it's 1 minute, to just sit there and breathe and feel yourself in your body so that you can feel yourself.
Yes.
Just that in itself is massively huge. And the more you do it during the day, the more you do it, the better, obviously, because like anything else, it's a habit. It's a new learned behavior. It's a new way of reprogramming your mind to work in a different way. Our brain is our tool. We are not the tool of the brain. The brain is our tool. We need to use it as our instrument. It's a beautiful instrument, but if it's unmanned, causes chaos for us, right? It makes us feel and see things. And so I really think that's really important. And then the one last thing, I know we got to go probably, but the one last thing I really wanted to mention, speaking about love and the concept of love, I saw this just last week, and it was Drew Barrymore was interviewing Jay Shetty. I love Jay Shetty. He's just so fabulous, right? He's married, and he always sometimes interviews his own wife, and they go at it as a couple, and I love it. Yeah. But Drew Barrymore was asking Jay, I'm looking for a partner, and for some reason I feel like I can't find the person. She was crying, and he just put his hand on her shoulder and said, listen, this whole concept of romantic love has been blown completely out of proportion. And it has made like the market, and that's why Valentines, I'm not a real fan of it, is because they've marketed it to a point where if your significant other doesn't give you flowers on Valentine's, there's something wrong. Like there's, you know what I mean? Like there's just so much stuff. Your truth is your truth, and the agreement you have in your partnership is your own. Nobody should be dictating that. But what he said to her was, there's this thing that shows that the only way for you to be fulfilled is to have that partner. And that's the only love that's really important. And I thought that was so beautiful, because he basically highlighted, as you said, that love is the same love that you have for your dog, for your mom, for you, it's that same love. So don't just celebrate and seek that romantic love as like the epitome of like, that's the top love, and I got to go for that. No, instead celebrate in this other love, which is the same love, just expressed in different ways. And when you fill yourself with that love, the fulfillment comes up, and all of a sudden that desperation that you're talking about, Tara, it really dissipates. And all of a sudden you now are more relaxed. And when you're relaxed, it's like you open. And all of a sudden when you open, it's like, boop, the person that, the next experience of love is just going to plop right on your lap. And I just thought that was beautiful. I'm going to try to find it. I'm going to send it to you.
Yeah. And I love it. I love it so much. And I know we're at time, but I love it so much because for a long time, the other thing that happened to me after my last relationship was that I shut down for a few years. And it was like, no sexual intimacy, no love, no nothing, like not even self-gratification. It's just nothing. And when I finally, it's interesting because my heart said it to me before my mind did and before my body did, but my heart says it's time to open that base chakra, Tara. Like that's how it came to me. And it was like my sacral chakra was just so shut down and so blocked that the energy wasn't getting through the rest of my chakras. It wasn't flowing. And I opened that chakra. I really put conscious effort to it. And I now, like, God, 2 years after that moment, it was game changing for me because I realized at that moment that I could just exude love all the time. I could just be love and exude love. And the more I did that, the more that was going to come to me. And I didn't have to lock myself down. I didn't have to shut myself off. I didn't have to only focus on work. I could do a multitude of things. And just like I have with my career, now I have with like, what do I want next? And who am I inviting into this space with me? And so I really acknowledge you for sharing that. And I know we have to go. So in closing here, we talked a lot. We talked about shedding, right? Getting rid of like hair and thoughts and abusive patterns and belittling ourselves and like just shedding everything that no longer makes us feel like the stardust that we are. We talked about learning and walking in the lessons from the past, but not allowing it to dictate or the remnants of it to alter what is supposed to be in our best day today. We talked a lot about how to process used traumas and move them out of our body so we could love ourselves again. But I think the most important thing we talked about today is just returning to love in itself, love. And if we sit in love, love is the highest frequency. Remember, the lowest frequency is shame. And as women, we're constantly put into a shame state. Shame is the lowest. Unconditional love is the highest. And if we want to vibrate, if we want to bring love to people, we have to start with feeling it in ourselves first. So tomorrow, I've sent myself flowers.
Oh.
Tomorrow, I am going to take care of my own needs, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I'm going to have some wine and some chocolate. And who else knows where the day will go? But regardless of what happens externally, I am taking care of myself tomorrow. And I suggest that all of you do that too. And I suggest that you just take some time tomorrow to start your day in gratitude for love and exude love out and bring more love into the world, because I truly think that's what we need today. So that's kind of my final thoughts. What about you?
I have one last invitation to everybody. And that is, I know that we talked about a lot of things like chakras and energy and like practices and everything like that. And I know sometimes it could be a bit overwhelming because you're like, okay, well, what do I need to do? How do I? So what I would invite you is to really connect with that feminine energy within you, and allow yourself to be guided. I promise you that even grabbing my water bottle, something I do every day anyways, and then just sitting with it and saying, okay, I'm going to drink this because I love myself and I deserve to have hydration to feel really good. So it's not about what you do. It could be as simple as brushing your teeth, literally. That could be an act of self-love. The magic behind it is the intention you put with it. It could be picking your teeth, like literally, it could be anything as simple and as day-to-day, but it's the intention you put behind it. So don't be afraid of talking to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Magda, I love you. You know what? This cup of tea is just for you because you deserve it and you're friggin' awesome and I love you. And you drink it. And I promise you, it sounds silly, but it will make huge impact in your day and you will feel the love. It doesn't have to be always like a big production. It's in the simple things that will bring you that love. It could be just the one breath you take consciously that can make it or break it for you.
I love that so much. The intention of what you do. And as the Buddha said, enlightenment's in a cup of tea. So put that intention out there. Love yourself. I love you lots. I love all of you lots. And I love me lots. So here's to tomorrow, the big love day. And thank you as always for being with me. I so appreciate your time, Magda. And to all of you, enjoy your love day.
Bye.